large difference can be there in small things.
I would just like to add, I think there are plenty of innovation stories in India. We just don't talk about it. The successful companies have only built successful innovation, whether it's pharma, FMCG, our own commodity business and the metals business. I think we have done things which nobody has done in the world. Today we have the lowest cost base in the world, creating world-class products. It's not at the cost of quality. We are creating world-class products at a cost level which is what we call last man standing. If there's a chaos, at the end of the last guy to be affected should be you. And that is the best way of survival. And I think the innovation in India is frugal, homegrown. What we don't do is the IPR. We don't patent it, we don't talk about it. But there's a lot of creativity. We have got the worst of the feedstocks. We've got all the constraints we have spoken about, but still you end up being a world beater. Every business in our group is in the top 3 in the world. And I think we have been able to achieve that sitting in this country and selling all of them in this country. We are not exporting most of it. So I think it's possible.
I think one of the challenges we have in the country is when I compare what we do here in India and what happens in the developed countries like US and Europe, is the chalta hai attitude. Because, you know, if you have anything, you need to really, whether it is in the manufacturing sector or any sector, people, somehow things don't happen, they don't feel about it, and okay, or if you have a process or a system to be followed, any problem comes, any handicap, rather than stopping and dealing with it, bypasses it. Now, as a culture, if you want a manufacturing as a competitive dynamics over a period of time, you need to create a workforce, both operative workforce and managerial workforce, which has the kind of discipline which is necessary, because today no one is prepared to accept any defective product anywhere in the world, including in India. And therefore, if you have to produce anything consistently and they are defect-free, you need this culture. And I don't know how much we are doing consciously or otherwise. Each companies are trying to do that. But when you look around, the way we run our government, we run our cities, we run any of our public services, we just don't see that culture of discipline and culture of working things properly. So I think as much an industry has a responsibility to create a culture, I think country as a whole and the governance as a whole must accept that we have to get a culture of doing things right. And just we can't carry on a culture of chalta ho tomorrow. Even if you want to become a great company, you can't go on growing at 8%, 9% GDP for a few years, but you can't go on growing for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, unless we fundamentally change this. And therefore, I think governance, I hope that some changes are taking place, but ultimately it must lead to governance and not something which is chaotic and anarchic, which we are seeing the other extreme also recently. So I think we have to get this cultural dimension in place. I don't know how to do it. It's too big to happen. But that's a requirement. At least in urban center, we start doing something right. And we have some urban cities operating and doing it where things work. But you know, it does happen. Like you see Delhi railways. It works on time. It is spotless. It is clean. So people respond to a culture. I was told Calcutta Railways is doing the same thing. So when you do it right, when you design it right, I think people respond to that.
I would suggest that, you know, like we as a whole, all of us need to imbibe that culture of quality consciousness that Dr. Kharakiwala just said. Besides that, I believe for innovation, I think we need to attract quality FDI, because FDI would not only bring funds, it will bring technology transfer and best business practices. And we have seen that even when you have gone abroad and acquired some companies, it has brought, say like Tata Steel acquiring Chorus, has brought India around 90 patents. So this is the time I think we need to focus on quality FDI, and plus the education shops, low quality education shops should be shut down. We have to have quality accreditation. Like there are studies we say that, NASCOM studies say that not more than 25% of our graduates are employable. I would suggest that taking a cue from the IT industry, our industry friends should basically have their own training centers, in-house training centers, to basically inculcate and imbibe this quality culture, because that would, the government has, of course, National Skill Development Corporation that can act, on a public-private partnership basis and develop this skill. But we need to basically imbibe that culture of quality improvement and consciousness. That chalta hai attitude, like he said, has to go.
I'd just like to build upon this example of world-class FDI. We acquired a company in US, a $10 billion alum rolling company. And they make world-class products. And what we have done is taken that technology back into India, got some of the high-cost plants, and today we are making world-class can stock in India at a cost, again, as I told you, 50% of the world cost. And I think that's how reverse innovation helps. I think you have to match it together.
I make one last statement, and I know that I think you're running out of time. Innovation really are classified into two spheres. One is a process innovation, one is a product innovation. I think we are pretty good at process innovation. If you really look at the pharma industry, the generics, low-cost producer of the world, great processes adopted. If you look at IT sector, great processes. I think we do that extremely well. And I think our education system really drives us to kind of think through. I think the challenge is really product innovation, the touch and feel product. How do you really deploy a product in a market where you believe you can actually make money out of it? And I think in that space, what we tend to do is just import everything, and whether it's a USB drive to a camera to you name it, we actually do that. And I think somehow our system has now got to become by saying that, okay, if we actually start evaluating a domestic market and create a market, then you drive innovation. I mean, for example, the way we did it is we said, of course, we have a very large global technology center. We said almost 40% of our engineers are only going to work for India, period. Your job is only to create products for India and innovate for India. Create a market, figure out how you're going to develop a product, and then do it. What you then tend to do is, then you actually forced to innovate, to think about how do you create a market and how do you deploy that. And I think if that starts beginning to happen, whether it's MSME, SME, and you're beginning to support them, then you see this innovation cycle starts to become stronger and better. Process, I think we've beaten the world. I think we're damn good at it. Product is, I think, where the gap is.
Taking a clue from what you have told, that process innovation so far we have done, but product innovation. You see, the product innovation will happen, especially for the manufacturing setup, when there is a latest technology in place, when the latest machinery is in place. Now, when we see the technological and investment that area, I don't think that we are investing a huge amount over there in terms of upgrading the technology. Because any kind of innovation, be it a product innovation or a process innovation, either it will add to your top line of market expansion, or it will add to your bottom line in terms of higher margin or the cost saving. Now, the question is how we are going to do it. Now, everything cannot be enforced on us by the government. Like CSR, more or less that has become an enforcement part to every company has to spend 2% of their profit or so and so to the CSR. I think every company has to take their own oath in terms of that, okay, we will allocate this much fund for the process innovation and the product innovation or the technology upgradation, year-on-year basis. Then only it will happen. Because you see, when we compare the manufacturing with the IT, and I personally believe that is the biggest mistake we do. In IT, your 40% of your turnover is your salary. There your investment is a human resource. There is no plant, there is no machine, all the human brain. In the manufacturing setup, your capex is 300, 400, 500, 1,000 crore. So there your innovation will come only you spend the money on right investment in terms of right technology, right machines, and also constant upgradation in terms of process improvement and people improvement.
Well, I would completely agree with him that the product innovation, especially in our industry, is very consumption-led, very perception-led. with the disposable income going up, I think about 15 years ago, nobody would really wanted to buy a made in India product, even though we had the best of products and now we have even better products. But that whole perception about a made in India is just not there, both internally and globally. I think that is something which we are focusing on improving the perception of this made in India product. While we have the latest technology and we have the money to put in the innovation, but when we put the product out in the market, a customer, because we're the last mile and a touch and feel product, would rather import and be satisfied from a made in somewhere else rather than a made in India. So I think there's this perception. As an industry, we are very focused towards increasing our services, bettering our consistency to get in that faith in the made in India. And it's very much like 20, 30 years ago, maybe 35 years ago, we would disregard any Japanese toys as we were growing up. And it today is the preferred destination to buy anything from an electronic toy or whatever it is. So similarly, I think in India, while we are Indian majors, at least our brands are Indian majors, but we're not global majors. And if you take some other brands which have come into India, they've been majors in their own country and also globally because of that perception of that country and also the faith in that particular product. So that's something which will really, really drive innovation, and we've seen that happening over the 10 years. It's only improving.
I think some very interesting thoughts on this one, where we talked about India majors becoming global majors in times to come, and some interesting thoughts where we talked about benchmark, improve, surpass, look at patents and create a culture, look at technology as an opportunity for improvement, and that could make a difference. A very interesting concept, if you get quality FDI, it can also make a change. And the last man standing on the process, we don't need to necessarily have a kind of patent to make it happen. And the final one where we talked about that if we focus on product and try to get products developed in India, like for example, there are several centers like you're talking about, John Deere having a full-fledged center in India and several others, it can make a lot of difference. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I think it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'd like to thank the eminent panel for a very wonderful discussion. Thank you so much. We'd like to make it special by presenting a mentor on this occasion. May I please request the President, Bennett Coleman Company Limited and Times Conferences Limited, Mr. Deepak Lama, to do us the honors. Stepping up right here with the gentleman on this side, Mr. Valuri, Venkatesh Valuri, Chairman President, Ingersoll Rand India. Thank you, sir. Moving on to Mithileshwar Thakur, Joint Director General, Director General of Foreign Trade. To Group Executive President and Head Copper Business, Aditya Birla Group, Dilip Gaur. To our moderator, Naresh Rai Singhani, CEO and Executive Director, BMGI. To Mr. Debashish Poddar, CEO, Textiles, Bombay Dyeing. Dr. Habil Khorakiwala. Mr. R.K. Goyal, Managing Director, Kalyani Steels. And last but not the least, Abhishek Somani, Joint Managing Director, Somani Ceramics. Thank you, sir. Thank you, gentlemen, once again. Ladies and gentlemen, we just had an interesting panel discussion. We've got more interesting discussions and very many presentations coming up from these days. Just to tell you that we'll have a short energy break. We'll be back in 10 for the next part of our presentation. So thank you very much for being with us. Short break, we'll see you in 10. Thank you. As I said earlier, it's going to be extremely interesting. I also have to remind you that there are special sessions at the end of the agenda that you already have with you. On the main conference hall, we're going to have a special session, creating a conducive environment for enhancing workforce productivity. And we also have a closed roundtable for CIOs, which also starts post-lunch. So the details are there. If you, of course, the CIOs have already been informed. This is just to keep you informed also. Coming back to this session, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that as you stepped out, you might have been using your mobile devices. Request you once again to please ensure that while you're in the hall, to keep all your connected devices silent. And all speakers are requested to give media bites. We have a special media bite area, which is right next to the reception. So when you have time, gentlemen, ladies, please feel free to give media bites at the media bite wall. Ladies and gentlemen, we move on to this next session, stepping up to the podium is a gentleman with over 2 decades of experience in creating happy and prosperous clients all across the world, most notably India, the Middle East, and South Asia. He is the Managing Director of Accenture Management Consulting Operations and Accenture Sourcing and Procurement Services Asia, covering the regions of India and Asia Pacific. Ladies and gentlemen, before Mr. Manish Chandra steps up to the dais, I'd like to request we have a small audio visual. We'll roll the audio visual, and then we'll welcome Mr. Manish Chandra to the stage.
To stay out in front of your competition, your organization must be ready to adapt at speed. Geopolitical upheavals, market turbulence, fickle consumers, shrinking product life cycles. Today, change is the only constant, and permanent volatility is a real threat to your long-term viability. What's the best solution? We call it dynamic operations, creating the flexibility needed to outmaneuver competitors and drive greater levels of economic value in unpredictable markets, where people, processes, technology and data come together in one flexible network, operating within and outside your organization. Get it right, and it's a vital competitive differentiator. In fact, research shows that companies who actively manage risk are more profitable than their competitors. And companies who capitalize on volatility find it is a real source of opportunity. How dynamic are your operations? Is data your greatest challenge or your greatest opportunity? Are you deluged with information or equipped to rapidly translate real-time external and internal data into actionable